Canine Chat. News, tips, expert guests and reviews. Whether you're a trainer, handler or just want to learn more about your best friend, here's Paul the Dog Trainer with Canine Chat. The following podcast may have information relevant to you. However, it's based on the knowledge and experience of those involved. For advice more specific to your situation, please consult a professional.
And welcome back to Canine Chat, episode 6. Today we're talking to Candace, the owner and operator of professional dog grooming salon in Geelong, Stylin'Dogs. Today we cover such subjects as what do I do if my dog does not like grooming, and when is the best time to start grooming my dog, and much more. Here we go.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks for jumping on the show today. Really appreciate your time.
No problem.
I wanted to get you on to talk about some grooming. I know that a lot of my clients have grooming their dogs, and some believe in grooming, some don't really groom as often as they should. Do you want to start by telling us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll go into some questions, please?
Yeah, sure, no worries. Yeah, so I've been grooming for 5 years, and I own a salon in Geelong called Stylin'Dogs. And we're a cage-free salon, so we're a big believers in making grooming a positive experience. So the guys get to bring their dogs in, and we just try and groom them and make it all fun and positive, play with them and cuddle them quite a lot. So
I'm glad you said that, because I think there's a difference from a standard, I guess. Not everyone makes a good groomer. There are certain groomers out there that are really good at their job, but may not be the best at dealing with animals and dogs. And there's other groomers that are really good animal people that make good groomers as well.
Yeah, definitely.
I've got a few questions that some of my listeners have asked, which I want to get into, which I'm hoping you can help with, is such as, what is the best way to prepare their dog for grooming?
Okay, yeah, so it's really important that if you get a dog from a puppy that, you know, from the second you bring it home, that you're playing with its feet and playing with its ears and playing, you know, around its bottom and things like that, just so it's not going to be uncomfortable with those sensitive areas. So you basically want to desensitize your dog to the areas it's most likely not going to be enjoyed being touched. So, I mean, I know I wouldn't enjoy someone touching my feet, so it's just important to get them used to it. So when they come in for grooming, it's not going to be a bad thing that we're touching their feet and doing things they might not necessarily like. I think it's also important too that not just when they're a puppy, even if you have an adult dog that might not necessarily like those sorts of things, is still desensitizing them to it. So using treats and things like that just to help them realise that it's okay to be touched in those areas.
I think you touch on a good point, and I know a lot of people that take your dog to a groomer and they wouldn't actually know what happens behind the doors and how much trouble it can be for groomers when dogs start becoming aggressive, a little bit, you know, short with you, and they start to nip and bite and those sort of things. And in some cases, you have to muzzle the dogs. So
yeah, that's right. I mean, we're working very, very closely to a dog, and we're basically invading its personal space. So we're working within centimetres away from the dog, and yeah, that can definitely make our job difficult if the dog doesn't like being groomed or doesn't like a certain area of its body being touched. So, yeah, it's just important to make sure, you know, that your dog can feel comfortable with being handled and touched.
Yeah, and a lot of groomers wouldn't feel comfortable telling owners what their dog's like. So when they pick their dog up, they'll say, yeah, they were good, they were fine. But the owners don't realise how bad it is. So I think it's important, if there's any groomers listening, if they don't, they should definitely notify clients if their dog is reacting a certain way so they can rectify the problem?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it can be different. I know that, you know, my dog, for instance, one of my dogs in particular, she doesn't care if I pull her ears or pull her tail or touch her in certain places, but if a stranger was to do that, she might not be so welcoming. So definitely when a dog comes to see us for the first time, it may be a bit apprehensive and not like it, just because it's still getting to know us. So even just the more regular they could bring their dog in for grooming, just so they get to know us, so that it's not a stranger and we become a familiar person in their life as well.
I was going to touch on that because like when people have a doctor and they might go to a doctor's place and they'll wait there for it doesn't matter which doctor sees them, as long as a doctor sees them. I think when we're talking about dogs, it's important for a dog to have that relationship with a groomer. So I think if you start off with one groomer or you're happy with a grooming salon, you should stick to them as long as you can, so your dog does find it a pleasuring experience. Like
that's right.
Not all dog training and not all behaviour modification is going to be fun for a dog, but something like grooming and that kind of thing, you do want to be a positive experience, because although it does need to be done, it is important that the dog does enjoy or at least tolerates it to a certain point and doesn't become aggressive or anything with the handler. So what would you say, how often would someone have to groom their dog, specifically from, if you can specify it, from sort of a short-haired dog, like a short-haired Kelpie versus maybe a long-haired Malamute or a Poodle or something like that?
Yeah, so there's a few things that we sort of tend to go by. We recommend that you bring your dog in for its first groom as soon as possible. So that's usually once your dog's had its vaccinations as a puppy. As soon as it's clear and it's had its vaccinations, then we recommend, and that would usually be about 12 to 16 weeks. Bring your dog in as young as you possibly can, just to get them used to the environment, the sounds, the smells, the noises. So not even necessarily bring them in for a groom, but just bring them in to hang out for half an hour so they can get used to the place and not have it be a frightening experience for them. Generally, we would recommend with dogs that every dog should have their nails clipped at least once a month. So even for short-haired dogs, we'd still recommend them come in once a month for a bath to have their ears cleaned and their nails trimmed. And even short-haired dogs, they still need the dead coat removed from their coat in order to promote healthy new coat to grow through.
For some people that may not be able to afford to come to a groomer on a regular basis, not everyone can, or some people are very busy with life, is clipping their dog's nails and cleaning their dog's ears, is that something they can do themselves at home?
Yeah, definitely. So there's a couple of things. You can go to pet stores or vet clinics or grooming salons and actually buy, proper ear cleaning solutions and proper ear wipes and nail clippers and things like that. We actually personally just use baby wipes to clean out dogs' ears, so there's no reason that you can't just do that at home. Dogs' ears have an L-shaped ear canal, unlike humans, which is straight. So obviously everyone's aware that with human ears you can't stick your fingers or cotton buds in too far because you can damage the eardrum, but that's not the case with dogs because it's an L-shaped canal. You can push your finger in as far as you like and you're not going to do any damage. So we generally would just put a baby wipe over our finger, push it in as far as we can and just rotate it around to gently clean the inside of the ear and remove all the bacteria and the dirt and the wax build-up. Completely safe to do that for your dog at home. As far as nail clipping goes, I'm pretty certain that your vet or your groomer would be more than willing to show you how you can do that yourself. And a lot of people aren't comfortable with that, which is understandable because obviously they have the click in their nail, and if you are to clip it back too short, it can bleed, and that tends to put a lot of people off. There's a way we can show you guys how to do that safely.
Maybe I'm old-fashioned, but I think just leave it to the experts. I think I'm happy to take my dogs to you and get you to do it all. Although I could do it myself, but I think for me personally, I like my dogs to be experienced and be handled by other people. So taking them to you to get their nails clipped and to get washed is not such a bad thing because I want them to have that bond with someone else, not just rely on me. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, you definitely want to make your dog comfortable with having different people do different things to them so that you're not you don't have that fear that if a stranger ever touches your dog in a strange way that your dog's going to react. So
yeah. And what about when dogs haven't been washed in a while and they tend to smell a little bit? Why does the dog smell? Is it just the dirt build up or what is it?
So there can be a number of reasons. One reason is if the dog's not washed, then sometimes there's oils from the skin can actually build up too much, and those oils can start to produce a smell of their own or even just result in attracting even more dirt and bacteria to the coat. Another reason is just the general smell of whatever could be around in their backyard or the things they may come in contact with daily. The other thing a lot of people aren't aware of is generally when people refer to a dog as that wet dog smell, probably about 80% of that time that smell would actually come from your dog's ears. So that's where it's really important to keep the ears clean as well.
Well, there you go. Okay, so in regards to dog grooming and that kind of thing, this is one question, and a lot of people ask me, and it's not something that I have done any research and that sort of thing, and I'm sure you would know. But when it comes to washing their dog, and there's so many different washing detergents, washing powders, washing solutions for a dog's coat, does it really matter which one you use? Is there a specific ingredient you should try and steer clear from? There's natural ones and there's fragrance free and all that sort of stuff. Is it something that you should take more seriously, or does it not really matter what you use?
Yeah, no, I think it is important. We often hear of people using even just their normal sort of washing powder or fabric softeners or their own human shampoo on dogs, and they're all things I'd recommend you definitely steer clear of. Dog's skin is a lot more sensitive, because it's their whole body from what we might be used to using as far as our body wash products. So really important to stick with products that are paraben and sulfate free. Another ingredient is actually tea tree, can actually be quite detrimental to a dog's health. So I've noticed a lot of supermarkets do actually sell a tea tree dog shampoo, and that's definitely one I would say don't go near that one. Yeah, you can. Another one is, I would recommend that you go to your vet clinic or your pet shop and buy a good quality or good grade shampoo for your dog. But the other thing that you can do in between baths, just so you're not stripping the oil too much, is you can actually just use corn flour out of your kitchen cupboard. So the way that works is you just get a handful of corn flour, rub it through your dog's coat, and then just brush it out. And the corn flour actually acts as a magnet to the dirt, so all the dirt will get drawn to the corn flour, and then when you brush your dog, all the corn flour and the dirt will just drop straight out. So that's a great way to bath them as a dry bath in between their normal baths, just to remove all that dirt and bacteria.
That's some pretty nifty advice, Candace. Now, I get this. This is something that I get a lot when I have my one-on-one sessions and the dog is seemingly out of control. And then I take the lead, and all of a sudden the dog starts behaving. And the owners often think that, I've got some special power, or I've sedated the dog with my treats or something. But it's not that at all. But I'm sure as a groomer, you would have the situation where the dog happens to be naughty for the owner, but seems to be really good for you and your staff.
Yeah.
Why do you think that would be?
So that's definitely something we get a lot. And to be honest with you, Paul, I actually struggle grooming my own dogs. So for people that struggle grooming their own dogs, you are not alone, because I'm in the same boat. And I think what it is when you have your own dog, you have that emotional connection to your dog. So when your dog starts to misbehave, you get frustrated or you get upset with yourself because the dog's being naughty. So and that's exactly what happens when I try and groom my own dogs, is sometimes they misbehave and I go, why are you being naughty? You should be good, and it's almost like the dog starts to sense that you're getting frustrated, and the dog sort of goes, dogs are very, very smart, and then the dog starts to go, oh, mum's getting upset, mum's getting frustrated. If I keep doing this, she's going to stop. So the dog's just trying to push you and get you to give up. So the best thing you can do is just keep persisting, try and stay really calm, and just don't let yourself get upset or frustrated about it.
Yeah, that's one thing that I try and talk to my clients about is I don't want to remove emotion from dog training, because emotion's really important, but I think it's important that you, if you ever have to correct a dog or reward a dog, you don't want to be frustrated, angry, or any of those sort of feelings. You want to stay neutral. Dogs are experts in body language, and they can sense. And one thing I talk to people about is that the dogs see me as a leader from the second I walk through the door, but with the people they live with, they see them when they get up in the morning, they see them when they're sad, when they're happy. They get away with things around them. Dogs are not stupid. They know who they can get away with. It's similar to when you go to school and you have a teacher walks down the hallway and all of a sudden you start behaving. But then when you have like a substitute teacher that you can get away with stuff, you start misbehaving. So it's a very, very similar concept to that.
From the second that a dog walks into my salon, is that the dog understands that that's my territory, so that I'm the leader of the pack, so to speak. So it's in my domain, in my territory. And when people are trying to groom their dogs at home, they're doing it in what the dog believes is their territory. So the dog thinks that they can do what they want, whereas when they're in my shop, it's my territory, so they have to do what I'm telling them to do.
Yeah, and that's really important, because that's exactly what dogs are thinking. Now,
yeah.
What I wanted to know in regards to for dog grooming is there's probably people out there that think their dogs are, they haven't, we're saying now get your dogs ready from a young age and make sure you get them prepared. But there must be some people out there that have dogs, they've just adopted one from the pound that may be 2 or 3 years old, and they're not entirely sure what kind of training the dog has, and they're thinking, should I take it? What if something happens? Would you recommend they still bring their dog along for you in the initial stages in order just to see what's going to happen?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's a good idea just to sort of get a grasp of, I guess, where the dog is at, with its energy levels or with its fear levels and things like that. And if it's coming into a new environment, then it's best to expose it to as many new things as you can. I mean, you don't want to overwhelm your dog, but you also want to show your dog that you have a say of where the dog goes and what happens to the dog, and that way that dog can actually trust you and that nothing bad's going to happen.
Yeah, and I always say to my guys that before they attempt to do anything with a dog, like groom them, always take them for a long walk just to get that leadership and get that initial burst of energy out of the way. And then before they actually brush their dog or attempt to do anything, let the dog, or present that object to the dog as a scent. So let the dog smell the brush and see the brush and see what it's about, and then start brushing slowly and just work your way up to it. If you have to, you can use food and just sort of feed them as they're doing it to condition the brush is a good thing. But certainly I would recommend they do take their dog to someone like you who's professional and does deal with these situations all the time. Because grooming is one of those things that I believe is very, very important. Whether people groom their dogs regularly or not, it's still very important to keep the dogs clean, keep their coat shiny. And it's good for their health as well, and it's good to get them out and get them to be serviced, I guess, by other people and not always be handled by the owner. And that helps with their socialisation and things like that.
And I mean, most dogs only go and see their vet once a year for their yearly vaccination and health check. And, if you have a little fluffy dog and you're getting it groomed every 8 to 12 weeks, like that's another 5 to 6 more times in a year that we're actually seeing the dog, and we can pick up any health issues which may be really detrimental to their health. So we can pick it up nice and early and not, a year later between a vet visit. So that's really important too.
Yeah, well, that's one thing that a lot of people wouldn't think of is that, as you're cleaning their ears and you're cleaning their face, you're also checking for things, and you can feel different things on their body, and if they've got a cut in a certain spot that may not be noticed because maybe it's dirty and things like that.
Yeah, definitely.
How often would you say, what's the ideal time to groom your dog? Is it every, there's some people out there that don't quite know. Is it every 3 weeks, every 4 weeks? If there was a perfect time, what would you say that would be?
I mean, obviously that's a hard one to answer just because there are so many different types of breeds and different types of coat. But I guess as a rule of thumb, you'd probably, at the very longest for any breed of dog, every 12 weeks. You wouldn't really want to go past that 12-week mark, no matter what breed of dog it is.
Okay, and I've just got a couple more questions before I let you go. Thank you very much for your time today, spending time to help us.
No problem.
But I do get a few people that ask me, but I do see it a lot around the street, and some people groom for show, so they want their dog to look a certain way. But what about people that may have a long-haired dog, and it's coming close to summer in a few months, and they may want to shave their dog in order to make it a bit cooler for them? Now, that's more out of my range and more something that you would know, but I do know there are some dogs like Huskies and Malamutes that just should not be shaved regardless because of their coat. But can you touch on what some of the breeds are that you can shave, in a professional situation? I don't want people out there to go and shave their dogs. I think it's the right thing to do. But what kind of dog should you steer clear from shaving, especially in summer?
Yeah, so there's certain breeds like you just mentioned with your Huskies and your Malamutes, your Samoyeds, your Akitas, any of those really dense triple-coated dogs. Their coats are actually designed to keep them nice and warm in winter, and it's actually designed to insulate against the summer heat during summer to actually keep them cool. So really important to not actually get rid of that coat. I do often hear people say, oh, that poor Husky or that poor Samoyed, it must be really, really hot, but their coat is actually designed to keep them cool. So I think, even during winter, we have a lot of people with their little Maltese-Shih-Tzus or their Cavoodles or little fluffy dogs, and people go, oh, I really don't want to clip my dog because it's winter, and it can actually be really, really bad for them if they're not being brushed or not being maintained, and you just keep letting the hair grow and grow and grow because you think the dog's going to be cold, can actually result in the coat matting up, and a matted coat isn't going to keep a dog warm. Dogs are very good at keeping their body temperature where it needs to be, so even your little fluffy dogs really still need their hair somewhat clipped back and maintained during winter.
Great. Thank you very much for your time today, Candace.
No worries at all.
Well, there we have it. That was episode 6 of Canine Chat. Stay tuned for next week for episode 7. If you want to see more about what Candace is up to, then head over to www.stylin'dogs.com.au or on Facebook at www.facebook.com/Stylin'Dogs Geelong.